In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use the rating control that ships as part of the ASP.NET AJAX Control Toolkit. So we'll fire up Visual Web Developer Express, create a new website. I'll call it Rate Me. And the first thing that I'm going to do is to include some visual resources, a style sheet file, and a collection of images. Now, in addition to using these just to spruce up the visual aspects of the demo, the style sheet and the images are important because the ratings control uses and expects, in fact requires, a collection of CSS classes, and the CSS classes include references to the visual artifacts that will be used in the rating control. So if we look at our CSS file here and search for rating, what you'll see here is that here's this control rating star, but what you look farther down is we have filled rating star, empty rating star, so those specify whether or not the graphics, in our case we're going to use stars as the things that folks could select for the rating, but you could use thumbs up, thumbs, whatever you like. And these classes include references to image files, and these CSS classes, not the names, you can name these, you can use CSS class names, whatever names that you want to choose, but these are required parameters for using the ratings control, and I'll illustrate that when we get to writing code. So we're going to start by adding a title, and then to use the CSS classes we need to include an href in our page, so we'll let Visual Studio create that for us. And because this is going to be an AJAX application, the first thing that we'll need to do is scroll down in our Visual Studio toolbox, find our AJAX Extensions tool tab, and add a script manager. Now I generally rename this to SM just for brevity's sake, and since I'm not going to provide any parameters to my script manager, I'll use the XML shorthand version. Now let's start by adding a div that will contain a header, and again this is just for visuals. So let's say div class equals demo area. Right, and that's one of the classes that are defined in the stylesheet.css file that I've included on the page here. And then inside that, let's create a div that will contain some heading text. Again, not necessary for the use of the rating control, but just for the sake of creating a demo that has a little bit of realistic UI. So we'll call this one demo heading, and then we'll add a little text here where we'll say rating demonstration. Okay, now let's wrap all of this rating activity inside an update panel. So again, finding the AJAX Extensions tab in my Visual Studio toolbox, I'll grab an update panel and drag an update panel into my demo area div. And of course, update panel is going to require a content template, so let's go ahead and create one. And just do a little formatting that Visual Studio doesn't do for me, or at least not to my satisfaction. And the next thing, we'll add a div that will contain the question. This is the question that the user is going to answer using the rating control, and I don't have a class defined for this, so let's just use a little inline style. I'll say float left, width 30, I suppose. And then here I can say all right, so there's our question. How much do you like ASP.NET AJAX? And so you'll see we're picking up the styles in the CSS file, and our background has an image, and our UI is coming along. Now we want to implement the rating control itself. So we're going to go down into my AJAX Toolkit tab. Now remember that since there's no installer for the AJAX Control Toolkit, I've manually created this AJAX Toolkit. And one of the things that I really want to take a second to point out to folks is that now that there are multiple versions of the ASP.NET AJAX Control Toolkit to support different versions of the framework, if we go into the AJAX section here and scroll down to download essential components, download the toolkit, when this comes up, what you'll see is that there are different versions, right? So there's a version for the 3.5 version of the framework, and then there's another one for the 2.0 version of the framework. And you want to be careful that you get the versions right when you install them. So if you install a toolkit tab for using the 2.0 version of the assembly, and then you create a solution that is that targets the 3.5 version of the framework, then all of these controls will be grayed out because they're not appropriate for the version that you're using. And I've had quite a number of email from folks that are a little confused about the behavior because they've installed one version of the AJAX Control Toolkit, but they're creating a web solution using a different version of the .NET framework. Okay, so now that we've got this area and the question specified, let's go ahead and grab an instance of the rating control, drop it into the content template of my update panel, and now we can start to specify all of the various parameters that will be expected. So the first one is going to be the current rating, and this is how many increments of the rating will be specified by default. So let's say when the page first renders, we want 3 of the 5 stars to be highlighted. So we'll by default select an average rating. We also want to specify what the max is, right? So we're going to say that the max is 5. So what this tells us is that by default 3 out of 5 stars will be selected when this page originally renders. Now the next thing that we need to do is provide all of the CSS classes for all of the various states that are available. So to begin with, we're going to need the base star CSS class, and in our case that's just going to be the class rating star. And when you download the source code, of course, you'll be able to look and see how these classes get defined. You can write them from scratch if you like, or you can just steal the ones that are in the stylesheet.css file that downloads with this project and modify those to your heart's content. Next, we're going to need a weighting star CSS class. And in our case, let's go find out what we named that. So rating star is the CSS class for the whole, basically for the whole control. Now we had filled, emptied, and saved. Empty, filled, saved. Okay, so I guess we'll use this one. I don't know why I called that saved rating star, but we'll use that as the CSS class for the weighting star CSS class attribute. Now notice that these names obviously are expected by the control. You can point them to whatever CSS class names you've defined in your CSS file. We're also going to need one for filled. And so let's go into the style sheet and say, grab the one that we defined for filled. And we're also going to need one for empty. So again, let's go into our CSS class, our CSS file, find the one that we defined for empty. Right, and these just point to different graphical images. One for on, one for off, and one for waiting, meaning that there's a postback that happens and there might be some latency that takes place. The next thing that we're going to need to do is specify the onChanged event. So this is what needs to get fired when the user makes a selection. And we'll call it like rating changed. And the last thing that I'll do here is I'll just add a little style to make sure that we float this to the left. So we'll say style float left. Okay. Now that we have our ratings control configured, we need to wire up the event handlers that we've specified for like rating change. So let's go ahead and do that in the code behind. We'll implement it later, but let's just wire it up now. So let's go and find our rating control and then select the changed event. So we wire up an event handler, and as I mentioned, we'll implement that in a little bit. And actually, just for accuracy's sake, we need to coordinate the names. So we said that change event was going to be like rating change. So let's go ahead and change the name of the control to be like rating. So now I can go into my code behind, select like rating, changed, and now we're auto-wired. Right, so just a little bit of naming dependency there. In order to work with this, let's add another section where we can let the user manually submit. We can do something with the results of the rating control. So let's go down, and underneath the rating control, we'll pop in a line feed, add a quick div, and I'll obviously in your application you would use theoretically you would use styles that are all defined in your style sheet. I'm just going to do a simple one here to clear out the left justification. Right, again, just formatting. Nothing you have to do to actually use the rating control. Now let's just add one more line feed, and now we're going to add a button and a label control, and the button will post back and we'll evaluate the rating control and provide some feedback to the user. So let's go ahead and add a button. Let's change the name of the button to be button submit, and let's change the text to be submit. And then let's also add a label control, which we can echo the user's selection back to the user. So we'll call this label response, and let's start with a default message that says no response provided yet. Go into design mode and double click on the button to get an event handler for the button click event. Now we can go ahead and run this at this point. And you can see that the UI works there. I've got the typical typo. And notice that I can actually select, and notice the control works. The stars, the CSS files are CSS classes are dynamic. We can select, but we're not actually doing anything with the selection yet. So let's go ahead. Let me go fix my typographic errors here. let's add a couple of breaks to our UI. And now let's go ahead and program our code behind. Now, there are a couple things that we might want to do here. One, I'm actually not going to use this in the demo, but I want you to know about one thing in this rating change. So, because this is an AJAX control, there's actually an asynchronous event handler that's in place. And so, like rating changed is a server-side event handler, but it's called from client-side code, and you don't have to write that code yourself. It's part of the control, but there's an asynchronous control that is there's an asynchronous call that's made to this method. And so what we might want to do something like set the callback result equal to whatever sort of state change has been made. So let's say, okay, your rating has been updated. The value is e.value. Remember, e is the event args, and the tag equals e.tag, again event args. So again, we're not going to use this callback result in this demo, but I just wanted you to know about it so that if while the user was selecting, you needed to modify other portions of client-side state, I just wanted you to know that that vehicle is already wired up for you. In our case, what we're really going to do is just when the user clicks submit, we're going to do something with the value that they've selected with the rating control. So let's say dim how much as string equals, and at this point, how much they like ASP.NET AJAX is unknown. So that's what we'll make the default value. And then we're going to say select case like rating dot current rating. And now we can set a handler for each case. Now in our case, we said that there were going to be 5 choices, so there were going to be up to 5 stars. So we will make a case for each of, we'll implement a case statement for each of those 5 stars. And in each case, we're going to set the how much string variable equal to some other value. So if they only selected 1, I guess we'll say they like it a bit. And so you don't have to watch me type too much. Let's use the magic of cut and paste. And let's see, if they selected 2 stars, we'll say it's some. If it's 3 stars, we'll say they like it a fair bit. If it's 4 stars, we'll say they like it a lot. And if it's 5 stars, we'll say they like it more than anything. And then, after we've set the how much string variable to be appropriate for the number of stars that they chose, let's set label response text equal to some static text plus whatever the how much variable has been set to. So you like ASP.NET AJAX, and let's set that into bold. And we want to close our bold tag so that we're well formed. Okay, so let's go ahead and run. And so let's select 4 stars, and you'll see that we're getting the post back there. We say how much do you like Ajax? Select 5 stars. You like it more than anything. 1 star. You like it a little bit. And so there you go. It's that easy to use the ratings control in your ASP.NET AJAX application. Remember that you can use whatever graphics you want. So in our case, I'm just using stars here, but you can be as creative as you want, and you can use images that are specific to the item that's being rated in your application. So there's a fair bit of creativity that's available for you there.